Okay, welcome back to the Never Iron Anything Comics podcast. This week, something a little bit different again. Much of what we talk about in here celebrates cherished memories or mutual experiences with this medium of comics that we all love. There's something on the page of these stories that sparks special memories, maybe good, maybe bad. And it's those very memories that have been collected by one of the guests today and recounted by another. You've met them both before. So let's hear a little bit about it from them. First up, the comics fan who's behind this project, Mr. Simon Russell. Hello, Simon.
Watcha.
Watcha. That'll come back to haunt us, won't it? And secondly, a man of letters, not least of all, in British weekly comics, is Mr. Eamonn Clarke.
Hi guys. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here, but lovely to be here. And very nice, sexy robot voice that tells us you're recording the call.
You like that, don't you? I set it to lady.
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, so we're not really talking about a particular series today. We're going to talk a little bit about a project that Simon has started, and me and Eamonn have written a little ditty for you. So I think it's probably fair enough if I leave it to you, Simon, just to explain what it is.
Okay. It's a fanzine, effectively.
Yeah.
And we called it Madeleine. I've called it Madeleine for reasons we'll get into later. I've been listening to the Awesome Comics podcast and a few other podcasts recently where people are running down memory lane and remembering things that comics...
We're prone to do that a lot, aren't we?
Yeah, we do that. It's fun. It's just part of why we stayed reading the bloody things in the first place.
I think you're right, man. Yeah.
I got to thinking about how my life can be marked off by which comics I read quite often in different places. You know how you can pick up a comic and remember that car park you were sitting in waiting for someone to come out.
Yeah.
At the shop.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought I'll make a little fun fanzine about memories, not about comics and not about the comics we remember, but about the memories we remember when we think about the comics. You know, that bit more like, I remember that day was the last time I saw David or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I was reading Hellboy. Whatever it is. I was just going to make a little tiny fanzine in the old-fashioned style, staple it, send it around to the people who sent some contributions in. And that would have been the end of it. But it gathered a bit of steam, and we got enough pieces when I started putting together to make a 100-page book, basically.
Wow, okay. Yeah.
It's too big to people. You can't do a fanzine with it anymore. So I had to look at making it into a little paperback book, which I still think of as a fanzine, but it's perfect bound, it's A5, and it's got 28 different people pontificating, really.
I mean, let's face it, if they had the printing processes back then, you know, back when the three of us were reading fanzines, they probably would have perfect bound something, wouldn't they? Let's face it.
Oh,
probably.
Yeah. I mean, they started out, for those who are listening, there might be somebody who doesn't know what a fanzine is or was. They began as sort of really, really cheap spirit duplicator magazines, so you could barely read anything that you find on the shelves now.
Yeah,
it's all faded and gone to nothing. And then people got cheap photocopiers and people got cheaper printing, and basically they were like the blogs of their day.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about comics, the three of us, all the time, and I know Eamonn, I've spoke to you about it before, but it's seemingly when we talk about the history of comics, there's a certain era onwards. I'm going to say like the early 70s, where a lot of these creators started in fanzines. You know. That seems to be their entry point into comics almost. You know, they're invited up to the Marvel offices because they did whatever fans... Someone like Bob Layton, for example, you know.
And before we started recording, Simon was showing us a recent acquisition, an American fanzine. It's got early George Perez in it. And it was very early by the looks of it, Simon. He's not that good.
Yeah.
No, it looks like a fan's drawn a superhero barbarian comic. It's from 1974. It's called Conjure. But it's lovely, and there's sort of like an honesty and an earnestness to people's own stuff that you lose once they get into the industry sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, Perez never really lost that. He was always an enthusiast. But you've had so many people in America. You had people like Mike Zeck and Tom Sutton.
Yeah.
Mark Hempel, Mark Wheatley, all those people working in the industry, in the fanzines before that.
Yeah.
And like you say, Bob Layton, I think Starlin people like that.
Yeah, Kurt Busiek, all these sort of people, Roy Thomas. You know, they were all that was their bread and butter for a long time, wasn't it? You know.
Yeah, in the UK we had massive overlap. So Alan Moore was writing in fanzines, and so was Dave Gibbons. But Brian Bolland was doing covers. Mick McMahon. It was because we're a smaller space, I suppose.
Yeah,
there was a lot of interaction between the fans and the creators back in the late 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I think I put a BEM up on the Slack recently, and well, I think which one of you two guys was replied to it, said that's a Dave Gibbons cover, and it was, you know.
Yeah.
That George Perez must have been only a year or so before he broke in as well.
Yeah, I mean, when was he doing Sons of the Tide? Would that be 76 or something like that?
Yeah, got to be in it. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. We talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, it's got to be around that time. And then we had some of the sort of, was it Man Wolf he did, and Logan's Run after that, didn't we? And, you know, it was only a matter of years from that drawing to him, you know, being big time, I suppose. But I know in a lot of the stuff we read as well, you see artists like Steve Dillon's always popping up, for example, isn't he? His artwork's always popping up. You know, he just do a spot illustration of a Legionnaire or something in a magazine.
Yeah, he was really different as well in his style. It's hard to spot him.
Yeah.
It was slick, sort of Paul Galassi type.
Yeah. I was reading one, I think it's the one you gave me, Eamon, that also, incidentally, we'd like to point out Simon Russell has a letter in, which is I met up with Eamon on Sunday, and he goes, look at this, guess who's in this? And it was Simon. And who's the guy, I forget his name, he's done some slaying, he mostly does storyboards for Doc 2 now. He did the Apollo book.
Mike Collins,
thank you. Yeah, he's got a Killraven in that one.
Yeah,
and I think the joke of it is he's got Killraven saying, "Yeah, even most of the stuff in my comics went over my head."
There's a little anecdote about Mike Collins. He's on Twitter, and he was posting about the cycle paths in Stevenage, which is where I grew up. And in this Madeleine fanzine, there's actually a map of all my comic sites that I grew up collecting comics from in Stevenage.
Wow. Okay.
So comics just circles around in your life, and sooner or later you can tie everything together with comics.
Yeah.
Or staple it together.
I certainly had a little route that I used to leg it round to all the different newsagents to try and get, because some of them only got like one batch of Marvel comics, and I didn't want to be stuck with certain comics. I wanted to get the X-Men's and the Avengers as soon as they were there. Yeah. I had the same.
And that's what people who grew up with the local comic shops, they miss that hunt where we didn't know what was going to be which shop, so we'd have to just go around to every bloody newsagent in town to try and keep our collection going.
Yeah. I mean, there's a comic shop in Stevenage now, isn't there? Am I right in saying?
I haven't been back for a very long time.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah. What about you, Eamon? Did you have like a little memory of having to do that?
Oh, yeah, certainly going around the newsagents. That was a thing, as you said, because they would never get, you wouldn't be guaranteed of getting a run, would you? Like, they wouldn't have the next X-Men in. You'd be a bit of pot luck of what had come over and been distributed to them. And even when it was like the British ones, the British weeklies, you'd still get sort of, if it was gone, it was gone. You wouldn't find it. And then I also remember I've talked to you about this before, the dodgy comic shop in the sort of like in an underpass, part of the city where you didn't really want to go to, but that's where it was. I loved all that. The hunt. You miss all that in a way now. The joy of the hunt.
Yeah, and the old the back issue boxes were like 10 for £1, weren't they, and things like that quite a lot of the time. I remember going into the comic shop in Ipswich where I was at boarding school, and the bloke just didn't talk to me. I'd ask him things, but because I was some young kid, and they were all like nerds, they just couldn't be bothered. Yeah, it's just like the air full of smoke and people talking about things, and me, oh, excuse me, can I have these, please? It was almost like that. Yeah.
I've been reading reviews of a certain comic shop this week. Apparently that still goes on, Tony.
Oh, does it? Not to us. Good. So what you've got here, Simon, if I'm right in saying, putting words in your mouth, is you've got a collection of memories from people of things that happened to them. I was going to call it nostalgia, but nostalgia kind of implies only good memories. Are there any bad? My story has a bad element to it. Let's call her that.
Yeah, she is a bad element.
yeah. But But she did benefit me, which is kind of the point I was kind of jokingly making in it.
Yeah.
But is it good and bad memories, or is it just sort of reminiscing? You know,
It's a lot of them are neutral actually.
Okay.
It's really we got some really short little anecdotes of I remember the weird man in the shop type things.
yeah,
But we've also got one that's really long by my friend Hannah Eaton.
Oh, yeah.
She did Naming Monsters and Blackwood graphic novels
right,
into this folk horror, and she also has worked in social work areas as well.
okay,
And she's going into the depths of how comics were affecting the sort of sociological outlook of a young child as she was growing up, and how they formed her and changed her. So it's like there's a couple of them
Wow.
like that, which are quite deep, digging under the skin of why they're.
That's
not
almost
really
like
why
it's almost like a brave. I wouldn't want to do that with me, man. It's the demons there. Do you know what I mean? How comics
Yeah,
changed
it's a
me
little
over
bit-
the years. You know?
Yeah. my main piece, I've done two bits, I've done a map and an article of my own.
Yeah.
And about how comics was prompted me to steal for the first ever time.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Actually,
It's-
yeah, I'd forgotten about that one. You
I'm
scared me,
admitting
by
it-
the way. You made me. That's the first time I've ever proofread anything. Is because you said it. I said I've looked at this, but it's my story. Can you look at it? And I honestly, if I could have cut each word out and glued it onto a bit of paper to make sure I got it all done. Yeah.
Well, it's like it's a fanzine. So what I did was made everybody proofread their own after I'd edited it,
Yeah.
and then any mistakes that are in there, that's fine because it's in the ethos of that. It's supposed to be done quickly. It's supposed to be done for fun.
Yeah.
It's not done as a work for posterity.
Yeah.
And all the pieces I've done illustrations for them all and laid them out on the page because I've worked as a graphic designer, and a book designer, and magazine designer over the years. It was easy to do, and I had to keep pulling myself back and not making it look slick or not professional, but not making it look like something you would buy in a shop because I wanted it to feel like the old-fashioned fanzines.
Yeah, you've given some of them a little bit of a washed out look to them, haven't you? I know yours
nearly
is.
all
So, Eamonn's, yours is Dracula, isn't it, on your page? I think.
Yeah, I've got a story about a UK Dracula Lives from 1975, and Simon's put in like an illustration, and because Simon was saying, and you were talking about the technology at the time. It's amazing that these people, beavering away in a bedroom, literally copying and cutting and pasting and sticking stuff in, and then the terrible reproduction technology at the time. They would be absolutely envious of our ability to move text and pictures around on pages. But so Simon's recreated, but that's what I love about it. He sort of recreated the sort of where all the, not necessarily all the blacks come through. And so some parts of it are grey and some parts of it, not quite all the same tone. That's instantly memory as well, isn't it, Simon?
Yeah, well, every physical object has a sort of totemic quality to it, doesn't it, with our memory? That's why we keep collections of comics. We get them off the shelf, we hold it, and we remember stuff. We don't actually have to open the covers and look inside. So I was just trying to sort of make the physical object as close to something like that as I could without getting too lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
And it's all nicking other people's intellectual property, which is naughty, except that's what fanzines did. And I put it down as fair use because it's for reviews, it's for academic purposes, which is all allowed under the copyright laws.
Yep.
And I'm transforming each one. Nothing is in there as it was in the original comics. They've been cobbled together and collaged and changed. So I'm claiming the Liechtenstein defence.
Good work. Yeah. But you're right though, man. And I sent you a little jokey thing from my notebook today that said memories of time travel. And when you say about taking a book off a shelf, it really is that effect. So I tried, before we came on tonight, I tried a little experiment. So I had a vivid memory of reading a particular issue of Adventure Comics whilst on a holiday as a kid. So they put you in the back of the car, don't you? And I had 2 comics for a 6-hour drive or something. And I thought, and I hadn't read this comic for maybe 30 years. And I thought, right, I'm going to get it out and I'm going to read it. And honestly, the rush of memories that came back to me just from that holiday as well, it was almost like a prompt, if you see what I mean. And And that's kind of what you're doing here a little bit, aren't you? You know?
Well, I'm asking people to share the things that they've kind of given themselves prompts, and then they've had that little rush, hopefully, of memories.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason we've named it Madeleine.
Yes. Do you want to get into that? Yeah.
Do that, of course. Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's,
let me just lead it into you, because it's called Madeleine, and I just accepted it was called Madeleine. And weeks after you said to me, "Oh, we're going to use this as a cover, otherwise it's cool," suddenly I was like literally walking. You know, you're walking around. It takes you ages to. We had this on Sunday, didn't we, Eamonn, where we tried to remember the name of someone, and then it suddenly occurred to you like 4 hours later. But and suddenly it occurred to me why you've called it Madeleine. So did you want to explain that? Because we're quite intellectuals, aren't we? It's quite an intellectual reason almost, isn't it? You know,
we're very deep. I mean, if I explain, you can pretend it was the same reason that you thought.
Yeah, it's true. Go on then. You say why.
Well, I'm just trying to think of a single name title, like Linus, which is the Italian fanzine, which often has Peanuts type covers on, and articles and comic reproductions. And all the British comics used to have one name titles quite often, like Bunty or Ginty, and things like that. I thought Madeleine's a girl's name. It's also the biscuit that Marcel Proust ate or smelled or whatever it was in Recherche de Printemps or whatever it was.
Yeah, remembrance of things past, I think. Yeah. I'm not saying it with a French accent, but you did.
No,
yeah.
I should have stopped when I was ahead. So I've decided, well, if I call it Madeleine, it ties in with the comics relation things. It ties in with memory with Marcel Proust. We've subtitled it A Remembrance of Comics Prior, because in comics there's a woman called Maddie Pryor.
Oh, the singer? Yeah.
Madeleine Pryor,
her, sorry, yeah, sorry. Yep, in comics.
Famous redhead in comics.
Yeah.
In comics.
I thought you meant the folk singer. I was going highbrow there for a minute. I thought you meant the folk singer for a second there. Yeah.
I've gone all X-Men.
Yeah.
Well, Madeleine Pryor was redhead.
Yep.
And I've got a Peanuts tribute on the front cover. Charlie Brown was always thinking about the little redheaded girl.
Ah, right.
Pryor.
Okay.
I get so in the modern parlance, I disappear up my own fundament.
Join the dots. It all links up.
Everything is connected. If you want to look for patterns and connections, they're there. And if you don't, they're just silly names and words. Which is allowed.
Yeah, it sticks to your memory, doesn't it, Madeleine? Yeah. I even saw a billboard in France, didn't I? I sent you a picture of it with the word Madeleine on. Yeah. I mean, why do you think, Eamonn? Why do you think I remember certain comics and certain pages. We talked about Fantastic Four issue before, and I remember them more than I remember people's names that I've met in real life sometimes. Is that something you encounter, or?
Oh, all the time. My story in a way that's in Madeleine is a little bit like that, because we all like to think we've got a good memory, and then we're constantly being proved wrong on that because we can't remember somebody's name, and they come up to us. A very embarrassing incident with one of my cousins, and I couldn't remember his name, and he still never let me forget that. But yet we've all got these moments where, and let's be honest, they're pretty good moments actually, Tony, aren't they? The moments where you got the comic that you were looking for, or you got an unexpected comic but it was really good, and you had that moment. You were sitting somewhere in a car, in your bedroom, maybe at the bus stop on the way home, and seeing the comic again, or even just thinking about that story, takes you right back to it, and you think, that was a moment when I was just happy. Everything was right with the world for a short period of time.
Time kind of stops people who've had, bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people who've had difficult times, and yet, there are moments, comics or TV. I don't know if you've heard that story Tom Baker tells about the guy who came up to him in the street, who lived in a children's home, and he said the only thing good was watching Doctor Who, was watching you. And Tom Baker tried to sort of thank him, and the bloke was actually too emotional. He couldn't even talk. Okay. But it's, So it's like that. You get moments with your comic. When Judge Dredd punched through Judge Fear's helmet, I remember that, and wanting to talk to somebody about it. Who can I go and talk to about this? It's just the powerful things, memories. and bits and pieces drop out, but some of these comic stuff just stick there forever.
Yeah. I mean, I looked up a couple of quotes that just sort of, just to kind of spring some thoughts out about what we're going to talk about. And one was from J.M. Barrie, and it said, "God gave us memory so that we might have roses in December," which is quite an interesting quote. But it made me think, and I'll put this to you, Simon, do we spend too much time on the past in comics?
Fuck no.
Okay, good. I kind of thought you might say that.
Sorry.
Yeah. I actually discovered the first message I ever got from Simon, just randomly the other day, that said, "Here, Tony, I'm liking the podcast. You and I definitely read the same comics growing up." Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I think when you look at old comics or the stuff that sticks in your memory, whatever age it was, it's because it's the first time you experienced a lot of this stuff and these moments and these story tropes. Yeah. And you're never gonna beat that. The first time you watched Star Wars as a kid, everyone talks about the great big opening ship coming over your head in the opening sequence, which worked for us because we were in a cinema watching it. We'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
But my kids tried to watch Star Wars, and that sequence doesn't mean anything to them because they've seen it done over and over again in other places already.
Yeah, it's true.
In comics, we saw things that were so you'd see your grown-up movies sort of watered down for kid entertainment, especially in British comics like Action or 2000 AD even.
Yeah.
So we were seeing all these tropes and all these moments way before we got to see them in the film. So they really live with us. And in superhero comics, we filled in the gaps as well.
Yeah.
Especially the Marvel carried on for more than one issue. So you have to wait before the cliffhanger was solved. So you'd be living that, and it'd be really intense and personal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I remember literally going into the newsagents every day. I must have annoyed the fuck out of them to get... Do you remember Marvel Superheroes? I think it had the Perez Avengers in it, actually, at one point. The Byrne Avengers. And I would go in every day of the week and say, "Is Marvel Superheroes in yet?" And the woman behind the counter would say every day, "No, not yet."
Okay.
Almost like embarrassed when I recently drove past that newsagents in West London thinking how embarrassing that was. But you're right, man, it does spark up things. And there's all these kind of theories about memory, isn't there? And we have memory because of moments of some kind of emotion. And you're right, we were very involved in these comics, weren't we? Like you say about the Judge Dredd moment, Eamonn.
Yeah.
Have you got any particular memories of things that sort of just beyond what you wrote about in this book? Because I very much enjoyed your story. But anything else that sort of sticks in your mind that would remind you of that sort of moment? Or
well, Simon just talked about filling in the gaps. I remember not being able to get... There's the famous X-Men story where Wolverine emerges from like the sewer, and he's underneath the Hellfire Club, is he?
Yes, yeah.
And
he's just had a kick in a knee, and they think,
he's just right. They think they've done him in, and he emerges from the water, and he says, "It's my turn now," or whatever. Famous panel.
Yeah. And
I remember not getting the follow-up to that one for months. And as Simon says, you're filling it in. What's going to happen? He's really he's looking like he means business. So stuff like that. I can vividly remember a certain Swamp Thing issue where the one with the vampires in it. It really takes me back to being a particular time at college, at university. And I can I can even remember the bunk bed in this place I was staying in that I was sitting on reading this comic. It's so weird how memory works that like Proust with the smell of his biscuit cake things would just take him back to his childhood. And we're the same with dirty old paper, as you would call it, Tony.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember every panel in certain comics, but I still couldn't tell you the route that I used to drive to work or school on a certain day.
No.
I still would have. I still have to put the sat nav on, but I could tell you every page that happened in Teen Titans #1 or something. What about you, Simon? Anything that you and I talk a lot about Bronze Age comics, for example. Is there anything that you read back then that just you return to regularly, or you haven't perhaps returned to?
Before I had kids, when there was a lot more time, I would once a year I'd take all my comics off the shelf and put them in piles and rearrange them. So maybe one year they'd be alphabetical, next year they'd be by the artist or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was a way of keeping myself connected with them and keeping that collection alive and making it worth having to me. And there was one, it was a Jim Starlin Legion of Superheroes, where Ultra Boy gets accused of murder. And
I can see the cover to that one. Yeah.
he's back to the audience, and he's standing with his arms out and his legs akimbo, and the Legion is running towards him. And everything about that comic just hits me every time I look at the cover. I can remember panels, I can remember colouring decisions, I can remember lighting, because I remember reading it as a kid and I remember reading it as an adult, and it keeps linking me back over those years. There's loads of them. There's hundreds of them.
Yeah. I suppose the only other comparable thing would be music, I suppose.
Yeah.
For that.
It's very like it.
Yeah. For taking you back to the time you first heard it or where you were at the time.
Do you remember that scene in the movie High Fidelity when he's rearranging his record collection?
Yeah.
And the other guy says to him, "What are you doing? Is it alpha? It's not alphabetical. It's not chronological." And he says, "No, it's autobiographical." It's like,
yeah. We all could.
These are the. Yeah, exactly. And Simon arranging his comics. Then like this is the bit that was important to me then and now. Yeah.
I always think when I retire, that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to sit in the comics room and go through comic
rearrange
books after.
them.
Yeah.
There's a guy on Twitter called Colin Smith, and I don't know his background, but I know he's writing currently a book about Mark Miller.
Okay.
And he keeps sharing. I went down to the shed after lunch and I've unpacked another box of old comics and fanzines and things and put them up there. And it's a proper treat to follow his Twitter stream, because it's just these lovely little pictures of old comics.
Right.
And each one sends me down I used to have that. Oh, I loved that. Oh, that was great.
Yeah. It's like there's a Twitter account called, is it the Spinner Rack or something like that? Which is all the comics that came out on a particular day on a particular year. And I almost like compete with myself to make sure that I've got at least one or two on that they show. It's almost like that.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I don't know what it is. It's that it feeds into the obsession, and it feeds the obsession. So we remember it and we love it, but then we go back and buy more stuff we don't even remember.
I know.
I'm still filling in gaps. I never had that one issue when I was a teen. So now I need to. If I saw it for sale under 20 quid, I'd probably buy it.
Yep, I'm the same, man. Yeah, I don't think any of us are like big rollers in relation to old comic books. So we're not the sort of guys who would go and buy, a 300 quid comic or anything like that. I'm guessing.
No.
No.
What about you, Eamonn?
Eamonn's got an in and out driveway. He probably would.
Embarrassed silence.
No, I mean, I think these days as well with reprints and the apps and all that sort of thing, I'm quite happy. I can if I'd missed a particular issue of the X-Men or something and it would have cost me 90 quid, I'm quite happy to read it in reprint these days. I know, Simon, you say occasionally to me, I just want to buy all the comics in the world, don't you, Tony? And there, to a certain extent, that is true. But I think I'd sort of shy away from something that was too mentally expensive.
There's a return on value, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I find it, if I buy a reprint, it's okay if I just want to know what happened.
Yep.
But it's not the same as reading. There's a couple of Planet of the Apes, the black and white Marvel magazine, I never got. And I read them in British reprints, and I want the originals because they're drawn by Tom Sutton and they're beautiful.
Terror on the Planet of the Apes, were they?
It was the Future Chronicles series, which had
Okay.
nothing to do with film. Doug Mensch wrote this later on Planet of the Apes. It's all gone very, very strange, and there's massive city ships sailing the seas, and it's the most beautiful things.
Yeah.
And I've seen the reprints, and then they're on shiny paper, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I want them on that original matte paper because it looks good and it feels good. It smells good. But they're about 30 quid when you see them.
Okay.
And it's like, I can't justify it. And I'm gradually selling the comics I don't think I'm ever going to read again. And every time someone gives me money by PayPal, that sits there as a potential purchase.
Yeah.
Then I'm just swapping things. That doesn't count as money.
And some of the best covers ever of those magazine runs as well, haven't they?
God.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right. So, Eamon, you've got a story in it. How did you become involved?
So I think I saw it on the ACP Slack from Simon
Okay.
after listening to an episode of the ACP, and Simon put out the call. So for people who don't know, the Awesome Comics podcast, of which Tony is a founding member, co-host.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm the Sue
Pillar of the
Storm of it. I
community.
see myself as the Sue Storm.
Oh, okay.
Or the Saturn
Right.
girl of the group. Yeah.
With the same boob window.
Yes. Yeah.
So Simon put out the call on the Slack, and the story that popped into my mind was because of again, it's talking about the letters pages. We've been talking about letters pages in fanzines, and I had a letter published in this Dracula Lives in 1975 in the UK Marvel black and white reprints. And the weird thing was that because I wasn't getting Dracula Lives, I probably never knew it was actually published until somebody sent it to me a few years ago and said, "Is this you?" A bit like, with Simon last week when we were reading the UK fanzine BEM and said, "Oh, it's Simon. Is that our Simon?" And the weird thing is, we've been talking about the way memory works. Is I can absolutely recall the incident in the letter that the letter is about. It's about a school play. I can remember that, but I cannot remember writing this letter at all. There's no memory of it at all in my chemical substrate in between my ears. And so I wrote about this and about discovering this letter and then getting hold of a copy, you've probably seen it in print for the first time, and the way it just took me back. And also this idea about, our faulty memories, the bits that don't stick there.
Yeah. The
bit that I couldn't remember. Anyway, so Simon was very nice to me. He's included it. He was like, we should
very good.
say that Simon, it's amazingly quick. You send it to him, and later that day, he sends it back to you with some slight edits that he's made and with the illustration he's chosen to go with it. And it's all wham, bam.
Yeah, it did the same to me. Yeah, virtually. He actually said, "I won't get this till tomorrow." And then 2 hours later, it arrived and says, "Oh, I know, I had a bit of time." Turned up. And it arrived back with a lovely picture of the female lead of my story.
There you go.
Good. And so who did you want to say who else was involved, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I put out I didn't really put out a call, I just talked about it roughly on the ACP Slack and some other comics groups that I'm in on Facebook and other places and with friends. And I was bowled over by the number of people who said, "Oh, I've got a memory."
Oh,
and
nice.
When that happens, there'll be people who say that and then never get a chance or time or just don't send you something, which is fine. I thought we won't get much. But I think from the Slack, we got about, out of the 28 people I've included, we got maybe about 10 people from the Slack almost.
Oh, good.
And
That's good.
We got Dan Busher, your co-host, and if I name names, it's going to be a bit awkward because I'm going to forget some. But there's Alan Henderson, Nick Ho-Chi, who else? Alan Purdy.
Yep. Good lad.
Jonathan Sapsid.
Yeah.
They're all on the ACP Slack. Nick Bryan.
Cool.
Dan Charmley. But we've also got people came out of the blue. There's a guy called Lee Christian who is a friend of a friend who heard about it. And he sent me a really nice memory, which felt like one of my own memories.
Right.
That's the beautiful thing about reading. You guys sent me things and it's like, I could have lived that life and that could have been me writing that and just change a few details. They're also common and not common. They're also universal, but so personal at the time. But we've got some working professionals. We've got Brad Brooks, who's an editor and cartoonist. We've got Oliver East.
Yeah.
We've got Ilya. We've got Des Skin gives us a long piece.
That's
nice.
Great, man. That Des did one. Yeah.
He came out to the Cartoon County comics fair we did in December, and we were chatting. Then he said, "Oh yeah, I'll do something." It's Champion.
Champion. That's his favourite. Champion, and it's what Dave Gibbons says. Watcher, isn't it? I was getting confused there. Dave Gibbons says Watcher all the time. Yeah, and he says Champion. That's right. Yeah.
Dave Gibbons probably comes from Hertfordshire as well. We've got Paul Hudson, who used to run Comic Showcase. Yeah, talking about the moment that pushed him into working in comics as opposed to working somewhere else. So that's a nice little thing.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds great. And you got Paul Rainey.
Paul Rainey, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he did it. He He did a very Paul Rainey kind of memory. And I'd say there's like there's so many in there that I'm really pleased that people wrote them. One, because I don't think they would have ever said these things out loud.
Yeah.
But also because they just make me feel good. It's lovely stuff. And I find myself nodding and agreeing.
Yeah.
And I suppose I've got the confession I made on the Slack. I sent in a little a laid out page and said to the people on the ACP Slack, this entry, I'm not sure about this one. Anyone got any thoughts on it? Is it one I should
Oh,
get?
yes. You dirty bastard, you. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'd use an AI generator to generate an article about it. And the wonder, because I thought it would be quite fun to do a memories are unreliable.
Yeah.
There's an unreliable narrator idea. But the really interesting thing is, everyone said it was a bit weak source or anything else, but 2 or 3 people came up immediately within seconds and said, that's a chat generator. That's not real.
Yeah.
It's not got any humanity in it.
Yeah.
But all the others, I defy you to look at any of the things in the printed book when it comes out and think there isn't a real person behind that.
I think Sarah Harris said she almost analysed it, didn't she, I think? And said, I'm 99% sure this is this and this and this. And yeah.
Yeah, she apologised in case it was a real person.
Yeah. To somebody from outside, though, just to a casual reader, I can see them getting caught out on that,
Yeah. What it would be is like if you opened up the Metro and got 10 fun facts about the Avengers type article. It's as vacuous as that. But these are real people with real memories.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's 96 pages plus covers, 28 people sharing sometimes quite personal memories. Nothing too embarrassing or too sexy, but some are quite deep. Some are just absolutely delightful fun.
Did you reject Eamonn's sexy story then, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
I rejected the photo then.
Yeah.
Not you two. Yeah.
About furry cosplay. Yeah.
He did send me that yesterday, to be fair. That's good. So what's the sort of schedule? What's your plans with it, Simon?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. It was going to just, like I said, it was just going to be printed and sent to the people who made it. But there's enough there, and there's so much excited interest and vague interest as well that I thought, well, there's probably a market for this. Let's print some more.
Yeah.
If I Kickstarter, I'll get the money to send everyone a copy who contributed, and everyone who backs it can get a copy. And then we can sell the extra copies and give any money from that. We're going to give it to Alzheimer's Research UK.
Great idea.
Because it's a memory, it's all about things. So, I mean, Kickstarter doesn't let us do things for charity. So I'm raising the money to print the book.
Yeah, so beyond that, the money's yours anyway, isn't it? We can do what we wish with it, sort of thing. You can do what you wish with it. Yeah, I think that's fine, man. I can't see them having trouble with that. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And because it's all about it's going to be fun like that, I think it's a nice touch.
Yeah.
I'm going to launch it on this coming Wednesday.
Yeah, so hopefully as you listen to this, it will have just, if you listen to this as soon as it comes out, it would have just launched. I'm going to schedule it to go live on Wednesday, which is the day historically, like as you say there, Simon, everyone goes into the comic shop and buys comics, so why not buy this as well?
Well, it's a good time to talk about old comics, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we're picking up our new.
Yeah. And what are you thinking of charging for it, dude? Have you got any plans around that?
Oh yeah, it's £6.
That's good. That's good value, man. 100 pages, £6. That'd be £25 on some comic book shelves.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to do it at £5, but I wasn't sure how many. If I'm going to go to Kickstarter, I want to get enough money to print.
Yeah.
The copies to put a little bit of money aside for the charity. So that extra £1 goes in there, and we're not going to do a PDF version or anything like that.
Yeah, just physical.
There'll be no digital option. It's just a physical option, except everybody who wrote a piece for it will get a high quality PDF of the whole book once it's out. And I'm going to say to people, if you donate, that button on the Kickstarter where you say, don't get anything but pledge without reward.
Yeah.
If you can show one of the contributors that you pledged to back the project, well, I'm sure they'll send you the PDF. It's up to them what they do with it.
Yeah. It's also good advertising that, man, for this sort of thing. People will then maybe go and find your store, your website and get a copy if they've had a look at a digital copy of it as well.
Yeah, I guess so. But, yeah, I'm only going to print a small number beyond the backers.
Yeah.
Put it out there. It'll run out quite quickly, I hope, at a few fairs and events, and then it's done. It's over and done with.
Yeah, that's the dream, isn't it? So rather than clogging up my garage with old issues I haven't sold, that's kind of the dream.
Well,
Eamonn knows now. DUI.
Yes,
knows.
I do. Yeah, box of DUI. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. And so as you listen to this, go to Kickstarter. And what should they be looking up, Simon?
Well, it's Kickstarter.com projects/Boeing-graphics/Madeleine.
Cool.
But if you just searching Kickstarter for Madeleine, Madeleine, it comes up already on the test page. So
cool.
That'll work. There's a video there which is very embarrassing.
No, it's a good video. We were just talking about that before you came online. It's a good video, man. I like it.
We like it.
Yeah.
Silly teacher of it as well.
What's that? Sorry.
It's got my silly teacher voice.
Cool.
I'm trying to sound like Bob Ross in my accent.
Here we are on the French
Happy
Review
little
podcast. Yeah. Good stuff, man. So go and do that. Eamonn, so we just quickly have a chat through what else we've got going on. Eamonn, as well as being in this, you're also taking pictures you're still taking pictures for DUI 3, which will be coming out later in the year. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, DUI 3 will be out in July, August time, and we're still taking pictures up to the end of February. You can get in touch by emailing duicomic3@gmail.com. All the proceeds or all the profits are going to Mind, so another worthy charity. We're all about these comics raising money for charity, which is good.
Yeah.
We're looking for pictures for that. It's starting to take shape, what's going to be in the actual DUI 3. You've said this on the Slack already, or rather on the ACP already, Tony, but perhaps no more robots. I think we've had enough robot stories.
It was almost a catchphrase when we went for a coffee on Sunday.
It was,
No more robots.
No more robots. The shorter stories, 1 or 2 pages, more likely to get in.
Yeah.
We're looking for some more personal stuff or slice of life, some more sort of human interest stuff now.
Speaking of which, my compadre, Mr. Cumber, might have sent you something.
He has. It's just arrived in my email.
Ain't that fucking good, man?
Yeah.
Cool.
Cliff Cumber has sent us something for it, so look forward to that. So DUI 3 will be out later this year, raising money for Mind, charity which we decided on amongst the contributors, basically. So that's good.
It's like a crowdsurf thing, wasn't it? We decided to.
Yeah. And Mega City Book Club. Sorry?
Eamonn, is it A4 again?
It's going to be A4, perfect bound, same as the first 2, basically. So Sarah Harris did DUI 1, I did DUI 2, this is going to be DUI 3, same format, A4, perfect bound, 60 pages, colour throughout, although there'll be some black and white stories, I guess, as well. But
I don't think you'll mind.
Looking forward to it.
I think if you just have a sneaky look at your WhatsApp, Simon, you might see a little peek at what Mr. Cumber's done. Trying to let's get some interest up for it, but I was blown away.
And also we've got an Ian Ashcroft cover as well.
Oh man, how good!
That'll be good.
Fucking hell!
Blood.
Ain't that good, Simon?
Right, Cliff.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was shivers when I saw that, man. That's so good. There's a bit of a Warren magazine thing going on there, I think.
Yeah, and a bit is it Jesse Lonigan?
Yes, the grid guy. Yeah.
Oh,
Very good.
Lovely.
Yeah, and I speaking of Ian, I know you. I don't think you mind saying, Eamonn, but you sent him and said, "Oh, any chance for cover?" And you got within a couple of days, you got like a Rembrandt back on the email, didn't you?
It's astonishing. People, I mean, we know there's some very, very talented people out there, but again, a bit like Simon, I asked him, and like the next day, he'd sent me like the finished cover, and it's like, oh my god.
Wow.
Fantastic. So look forward to that. DUI 3 will be out later this year.
Really shaping up to be nice.
May
Thanks to
turn
everyone
up
involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've still got some issues of 2 left. That's right as well.
DUI 2 still available in hard copy and in digital from the store, bigcartel.duicomic.com. And there'll be that raised money for cancer research. There'll be, as I say, this one will be for Mind. Looking forward to it.
Great stuff, man. And what have you got coming up on the Mega City Book Club?
So the episode that's out at the moment, when you're listening to this, will be about the second volume of Dan Dare's adventures in 2000 AD, and future episodes coming up about Elephant Men by Richard Starkins,
Nice.
about the black and white Daredevils Marvel UK title that was short-lived and was quite a lot like a fanzine in its own right.
Yeah.
It had that same sort of
Had reviews and all that sort of thing in it, didn't it? Yeah.
yeah. Dead Skin. Mike Collins did that. I think he did that Dower Devil parody with Alan Moore in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Parody of Frank Miller's Daredevil. So yeah, that'll be coming up. And some Steve Dillon. We're going to be talking about Emerald Isle, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, lots of things coming up.
I'll repeat that Rich Starking story I told you at the weekend. I was staying in a hotel in Harrogate, and I was just chatting to the dude on the desk, as you do. And he said, "Oh, you're here for the comic convention?" I went, "Yeah, yeah." And he said, "Oh, my uncle, he does comics, and he reckons he's a really big deal." I went, "Oh, okay. What's his name?" And he says, "Oh, it's Rich Starkins." And I went, "No, he's a big deal."
Yeah, he's right. He is a big deal.
Yeah. He's always telling us over Sunday lunch he's a big deal. I said, "No, he's right. Yeah, he's not making it up. That's fine." Yeah, that was good. And Simon, you've got a couple of other projects on the bubble at the moment. I know you were talking when we did a pod together at Christmas, didn't you? You were talking about your next one, which is a sort of Hercules story, isn't it? Is that right? Still going? Yeah.
Yeah. 12 Labels of Hercules. Haven't progressed very far because I've been waiting for a big space in this studio, which I've had to clear out,
right,
and get the Madeleine thing done. So it's all ready now. Everything's on the page. I've got to go in and just basically draw and paint in a massive fugue of artistic endeavour.
Good man.
And then we're going to put the words to it, and that'll hopefully come out in the summer.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah, looking forward to that, man. We must get you back on to have a chat about that. And have you still got like a paving stone with a Hulk comic in it in your studio?
Oh, my slabbed comic, yeah.
The ultimate slabbed comic.
I think I should do a little fanzine about that, just a recording of it.
Definitely.
Hulk 181 in a concrete slab.
Yeah. That's great, man. Oh, you picked it up and showed us it once, didn't you? In a drink and draw, I think. You had it.
Yeah, my back's bloody heavy.
Do you remember that book that came out in the 70s or 80s where you could find this sort of golden hair, and it was this big sort of quiz book, and everyone's sort of searching all the countryside for it? Maybe you could do that with that.
Masquerade.
Yeah, that's
Masquerade by somebody or other.
Yeah,
Williamson. Yeah, the original idea was to seal this comic in a concrete slab and then dig up a slab out in the street somewhere.
Yeah,
and put my slab in place. But the reality of that, my concrete pouring skills were not up to that, and it
genius.
Wasn't good enough.
Good stuff, man.
I like it still.
Great. And so let's do the links. Where can we find you, Eamonn?
megacitybookclub.com, and you'll also find links to DUI Comic there as well.
Great stuff. And we can look on Kickstarter for Madeleine, but otherwise, where can we find you? You've got a cracking website, by the way, Simon. I was looking at it recently. It's a good website, man.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's I changed it recently, and it's called simonrussell.website. That's great. I thought .website, brilliant.
Except what genius thought of that, eh?
Yeah. I try and put it in official forms when they ask for your email. He goes, "No, we need a real email." So, that is my email. I can't do anything. But that's got links to everything I do, and there's a blog in there and pictures of my old work.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Please go and pledge to this book. There's a lot of love gone into it, and Simon's really pulled a cracking book together there. So go and get that. And thanks, guys. So I'll say goodbye to you now, and I dare say we should continue talking. But thanks.
Cheers, Tony.
Cheers.
Thanks, Simon.